Oh my goodness, what were they thinking when they designed this thing? It's crazy. Hi guys, welcome back to Grandpa Playing Games in Derail Valley. Today's going to be a slightly different kind of episode insofar as we're going to be looking into how to drive our newly acquired DM3, which we got in our last episode. And to do that, we need to understand a little bit about how it works. So we're going to go through that theory, but for those of you that are not interested in learning the deeper details of how to drive it, feel free to skip ahead. I'll be putting a time link up for you so that you can skip ahead and just see exactly how successful we are in applying the things that we learned today. But for the rest of you, feel free to join us on this fascinating journey. So as previously mentioned, the DM3 is a diesel mechanical locomotive. Basically that means that the engine is directly connected to the driving wheels whilst ever the locomotive is in gear. And between the engine and the driving wheels is a set of gears. And so essentially it's the same as or similar to driving a manual automobile or car or truck. Or at least so I thought until I started looking into it a little bit deeper. So let's hop in the cab and see what we mean by that. So in our last episode I thought things were going to be pretty straightforward in driving the DM3. Just like a car, I thought. Just simply put it into gear, rev the motor, start moving, change gears, move one gear up, and so on, and so on, and so on. So if we had to look at the gear stick lever on a car, we'd see that things are arranged in a pretty logical order. You can move from first into neutral and then into second, or you can move straight from first to second. But you'll see that first goes to second, is straight up and down. Then we move across to third. Fourth is straight down from there. Then across and up to fifth gear, and so on. So it's pretty easy to remember the order in which we need to move the gear stick or the gear lever. But here on the DM3, there's not one, but there's two gear levers that we have to worry about. And those have to be put into a variety of different configurations in order for us to be able to select any one of the 8 particular gears that are available to us in this locomotive. And as you'll see, it's not as easy as you would think that it would be. Let's have a look. So one of the differences between a manual car's gearing system and the DM3's gearing system can be seen straight away by the fact that there are actually 2 gear levers in the diesel locomotive, or 2 gearboxes, and as compared to just a single gearbox in a car. So we have to learn how to use these gear levers in conjunction with each other to select the various gears that are available to the DM3. So each of those gear levers has 3 positions. Let's look at those. The position, if we have a look at a gearbox A, which is the lever on the left, we can see that currently it is in the what I call the lowest position. that is the one closest to us. And it can be moved one position forward to the middle, or it can be moved all the way forward to the forward position. So again, the lever can be in the bottom or lower, middle, or forward position. So let's try to call it lower, middle, forward. We can also see the same thing applies to gearbox B's gear levers. Currently it's in the lower position, there is a middle position and the forward position. Okay, so what does all that mean? Well, fortunately, in order to be able to select the gear that we wish to be using, there is a guide that has been provided both within the cab and also some external resources, and I'm going to be pasting that external resource in the description below. So if you get as confused as I am, you can simply have a look down there and look up the reference guides that I'm going to be pointing you to. Alright, so fortunately one of my viewers, Rukuni Scaluni, and I hope I say that name correctly, has been kind enough to point out that there is an in-game gear position guide, and that is affixed in a label just down here underneath the gear levers. So you can see that indicates the position that the gear levers should be in for each of the eight gears that are available to the DM3. Now, unlike a car where those gears are really arranged in a logical fashion, this thing becomes quite crazy, as the title of my video suggests. It's really, really, really complicated to remember. So let's have a look at the means by which we would shift from one gear to another in the DM3 and the various combinations that these gear levers need to be. Currently, both gearbox A and gearbox B are in the lower position. That represents first gear. So pretty straightforward. Both closest to you means you're in first gear. If you want to move up to second gear, it's a matter of moving gearbox B into the middle position. Makes sense, doesn't it? Easy enough. Now you would think, if it was anything like the gear stick on a car, that to move to the third gear would be simply a matter of moving gearbox B one more notch forward to the forward position, but that is not the case. And this is where it starts to get complex. So we're in second gear currently. If we want to go to third gear, we need to move gearbox A into the middle position and gearbox B into the lower position. So that's third gear. If we want to move to fourth gear, then gearbox B also goes into the middle position. So both gearbox A's lever and gearbox B are in the middle position for fourth gear. For fifth gear, then it starts to get even more crazy. We have to move gearbox A all the way forward and gearbox B to the lower position. For sixth gear, we advance gearbox B to the middle position, and then for seventh gear, yeah, you guessed it, it's not straightforward. We have to move gearbox B to the upper position and gearbox A into the middle position. And then finally, for gear 8, both levers go into the middle. So again, we have gear position 8, or notch 8 as it would be called in a locomotive, with both gearbox A and gearbox B all the way forward. To move to 7th position, it's a matter of bringing gearbox A into the middle position whilst gearbox B remains forward. To move to 6th, then it's a matter of bringing gearbox A up and gearbox B down. To move to the 5th position, then gearbox B comes all the way to the lower. To the 4th gear, then both gearbox A and gearbox B are going to be in the middle. 3rd position, gearbox 3, gear lever position 3. Then for notch 2 or gear 2, we need to move this one forward, that one back. And finally, for first gear, both of them have to be in the lower position. Now, if you're going to be able to remember that whilst at the same time you're looking around trying to see where you're going, and while you're trying to apply your brakes and do all other things, then I'll admit it, you're a better locomotive driver than I'm ever going to be. I think it's going to be quite possible for us to skip some of the gears in general use and provide a simpler method of moving through the gears. So let's try maybe skipping from 1st to 3rd to 5th and then moving through to 6th, 7th, 8th, and see if we can remember that. Hello, Grandpa from future YouTube here. So what this guy is forgetting to tell you is the fact that the DM3, unlike a car, does not always have to start in first gear and work its way sequentially up through each of the gears as it gains speed. In actual fact, the DM3 can start in almost any gear depending upon the load that it's carrying and the amount of tractive effort that is required. So you can easily, for instance, with the light load, start the DM3 in 3rd gear, and then as your speed increases, go up through the respective gears from there. And equally well, you can come to a full stop in any gear also. So what we're doing in this exercise is just practicing transitioning from one gear to another so that we can memorize the position of the gear levers accurately. However, just do recall that you don't need to work your way through 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and so on and all the way back before you come to a stop. Okay, we'll put you back to Grandpa from past YouTube. So, we know that with both of the gear levers in the lower position, gearbox A and gearbox B in the lower position, we're in 1st gear. We know if we want to go to 3rd gear, then it's a matter just of moving gearbox A into the middle position. If we then want to go up to 5th gear, it's a matter of just moving gearbox A into the upper position. So we can see 1st to 3rd to 5th and 5th to 3rd to 1st. It's simply a matter of having gearbox B all the way in the lower position and keeping it there, and moving and manipulating gearbox A all the way forward for 5th gear, into the middle for 3rd gear, and all the way to the lower position for 1st gear. So again, we want to go from 1st to 3rd, it's a matter of moving gearbox A into the middle. We want to go from 3rd to 5th, gearbox A goes to the forward position. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. How do we then move to 6th gear? Well, we just leave gearbox A where it is and move gearbox B into the middle position. So I think this is starting to be a lot more logical and easier to remember than trying to remember all of the intervening gears as well. Okay, let's try that again. We're currently in 6th position. We want to move into 5th position, or 5th gear. then we need to have gearbox B in the lower position and gearbox A in the fully forward position. If we want to move down to third gear, it's just a matter of gearbox A into the middle, and first gear, bring gearbox A all the way to the lower position as well. So first, third, fifth, sixth. Pretty easy, I think. Seventh, a little bit harder to remember, but I think we'll start to get the hang. We need to move gearbox B all the way forward and gearbox A into the middle. So this is seventh gear. Move back to sixth gear. Then it's a matter of gearbox A into the fully forward and gearbox B into the middle position. So, okay, we're in sixth gear. We want to go to seventh gear, like so. And finally, to go to eighth gear, both levers all the way forward. Okay, let's try running our way from 8th to 7th to 6th to 5th to 3rd and then to 1st. Okay, we're in 8th gear now. To go to 7th gear, gearbox B all the way forward, gearbox A in the middle position. To go to 6th gear, then we have gearbox A all the way forward and gearbox B in the middle position. To go to 5th gear, gearbox B comes all the way to the lower position. 3rd gear, gearbox A to the middle position. And finally, gear 1, both gear levers are all the way in the lower position. So I hope that makes it a little bit easier to remember. Of course, as I mentioned, there's going to be some guides that I'll be providing from various resources around the internet and the Derail Valley community. Thank you guys. Which you can use to refamiliarize yourself with this as well. So let's try this one more time and then we'll actually try to put it into real practice. Although there is obviously going to be at least one more trick that we need to remember. Okay, so from 1st to 3rd, we need to move, to be in 1st gear, both gear levers need to be in the lower position. To go to 3rd, gearbox A goes into the middle position. To go to 5th, gearbox A into the higher or upper position. Next, we want to move to 6th gear, and that means gearbox B goes into the middle. Then 7th is going to be gearbox B all the way forward, gearbox A into the middle, and 8th, both all the way forward. Again, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 3rd, 1st. 1st, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 3rd, 1st. Okay? Simple as that, you would think. But there is a trick and a trap. Let's say we're in 8th gear. We want to move down to 7th gear. That's pretty straightforward. Just gearbox A goes into the middle position. Now we want to move into 6th gear. Now if we were to move, so 6th gear is where basically our gearbox B is in the middle and gearbox A is in the upper position, right? So if we want to go from 7th to 6th, we need to move gearbox A forward and gearbox B to the middle. But if we do it in the wrong order and we try to put gearbox B into the middle before putting gearbox A into the upper position, what happens is that essentially we've dropped from 7th gear to 4th gear before we have a chance to engage 6th gear. So a big drop from 7th gear to 4th gear is quite likely to damage our engine. So always we need to move the lever that is in the lowest position forward before we move a lever that is in a higher position backwards. So again, the right way to go from 7th to 6th would be to put gearbox A forward, gearbox B back. And to go from 6th to 7th, we wouldn't drop gearbox A into the middle because that again engages 4th gear. We would move gearbox B up and gearbox A then back. I know it's complex and it's certainly not going to be intuitive, but as they say, practice makes perfect. So I hope this at least has helped to provide a little bit of context on what we need to do to effectively drive the DM3. Okay, let's try to apply what we've learnt. This is going to be interesting. So I think firstly, let's just make sure that our parking brake is on, that our other brakes are also engaged. Which they are. Okay, check our brake cutoff valve is in the correct position, which it is. I think we can start the engine, make sure our reverser is in neutral. Okay, so we're good to start the engine, I think. Engine started successfully. Alright, we're going to disengage the parking brake. Let's move our other brakes into the off position as well. Now, we should find that the engine, because we're in 1st gear, if we have a look, yes, we're in 1st gear. As we engage the reverser into the forward position, we'll probably start to creep a little bit forward because of that permanent connection between the motor and the driving wheels. Okay, so remember we're going to try 1st, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. Let's give a bit of throttle. We can see our tachometer increasing. Remember, it's important to let that drop a little bit before we engage 3rd gear. Now we can add our revs, let it drop again. 5th gear. Drop again. 6th gear. Okay, and remembering to always increase the lower lever before reducing the higher lever. We're now in 7th gear. Being careful that our tachometer doesn't go too high. We let it drop a little bit before going into 8th gear. So we're in top gear now. We're travelling just about as fast as we comfortably can. Remembering we do have a dynamic brake that can use the engine throttle. To do a little bit of braking there. Okay, let's try practicing going from 8th down into 7th. 7th is just, we can hear the revs increasing and we can see the tachometer is way too high. We should have probably slowed down a little bit with the dynamic brake first. Okay, so we're in 7th. Let's go to 6th. Then 5th. Third. And finally first. Not bad. We managed to do it. Okay. So, we're in first gear. Let's try to work out these lights while we're at it. Put our lights on. I'm going to have trouble with these guys. That one on, that one on. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we're going to try to go back the way we came. Put our reverser into forward. Which is obviously reverse. We're going to drop our brakes. Okay, we're in first gear. We're going to have to know what our revs are like by the sounds. First, third. Okay, I think because we're going uphill here, we can still probably go into 5th now. That crunching noise you hear is the fact that I didn't let the revs drop sufficiently before changing gears. Let's go into 6th gear. Sixth gear. Seventh gear. And all the way into 8th. Okay, let's drop down to 7th. And into 6th. 5th. Third. First. And stop. So that's it. Pretty simple, huh? Well, we'll see how we go in our next exciting episode of Grandpa Playing Games. Stay tuned for that. And thank you so much for watching. Hope you learned something. I certainly did.